All right, and it's really expressing the frustration of many young people as we mark Youth Day. Earlier in the day, President Ramaphosa repeatedly declaring that gender-based violence is South Africa's second pandemic and says the issue needs to be taken seriously. Poverty, unemployment and alcohol abuse are just some of the causes that are blamed for the increase in gender-based violence. For more on this, we're joined by Act Now Chairperson Tebogo Lerole. We're also joined by Convener at the National Liquor Traders Association, Ntimane. Good evening to both of you. Thank you for your time. We've heard the President talk about the fact that gender-based violence is the second biggest pandemic. There have been several commitments from government in terms of how there can be a coordinated effort within the state to tackle it. Unfortunately, when you look at the latest crime figures that were released, just looking at the first quarter of this year, nothing about those numbers says we're making progress or even anywhere close to winning the fight against gender-based violence. What have you been able to uncover in the work that you do that deals directly with communities and also that speaks directly with men about why it is that they abuse women? Lucky?
Thank you, Kathy, for the opportunity. The issue of gender-based violence is indeed a pandemic that we ought to be fighting. It has reared its ugly head during COVID-19 times, and it's not going away. And you referred to the statistics that were released by the Minister of Police 2 weeks ago, which talks to specifically the rapes, the number being 10,818. And if you look into that, 1,260 of those rapes were based on the alcohol being consumed in the process, which is 11.9% of the reported number of rape cases. We are concerned that even though it's just under 12% of the rape victims suffered at the hands of people that consumed alcohol, we are worried that we are not really fully trying to find the solution to addressing the other causative factors beyond alcohol, because we can talk about alcohol and all its harm and unintended consequences, in this case being a perpetuator of crime. But we need to understand fully what causes this, because 50% of the rape victims suffered at the hands of people that they know at their homes. So meaning that this is a much bigger problem. And it was very important for us that on a Youth Day, on a very momentous occasion as a country, we addressed this issue of gender-based violence. We had a walk in Tembisa where we had the youth, we had the high school pupils that also joined in, as well as our partners, Santaco, Act Now, our implementation partner, as well as Consumer Goods Council of South Africa, which represents 20% of the country's GDP in terms of its representation. So for us, we take this matter serious, and we're saying that we need to work together to fight this. Otherwise, we should just remain talk and talk and talk. And the victims of these violent crimes cannot afford just to hear another rhetoric that doesn't translate into actual results that will actually reduce the number of crimes that we are seeing as a country. It's worrying, and we're fighting it.
Tebogo, when we look at a march and a campaign like the one that you're part of today, what makes it really important is that you have men that are the main champions of that campaign, that are leading that campaign. What have you found in the work that you're doing about the difference that makes?
It makes a big difference, because the whole idea is we're trying to encourage men. We're trying to rally men from all sorts of walks, all walks of life, to say we are the main perpetrators. If you look at the schedule of GBV, 90% of the attacks come from male figures or from men themselves. What we want to say is all men must stand up. We hear that there's government that needs to do work on GBVF, but what is important is for communities to rally together, to come together and work and make sure that the scourge of GBV is eradicated. It is important for us to speak to men as well as young boys and have dialogues between men and boys to say, how do we then find solutions and come together and trying to make sure that we create safe spaces within our communities.
What was the community in Tembisa saying to you today?
Communities are under attack, I'll be honest with you, but we also find out that it is a big challenge for communities to work together, because you then find that there are a lot of NPOs or CSOs that are competing amongst one another instead of coming together and saying, what is the main challenge that we're faced with? How do we come together? How do we then put all the ideas that we have, transact them into one voice that can then attack or that can go against the schedule of GBVF? The challenge is our people need to come together and government should be a body that brings the people together. And they need to come to the party as well. What you find, especially in public holidays like June 16, you find that government is doing its own thing, CSOs are doing their own thing, whereas if it was a big conglomerate of different organizations, CSOs, tackling the hotspots. For example, we've got a lot of femicide taking place in areas like Lusikisiki, Inanda. Those are all the areas that we need to get into as organizations and tackle all the issues that are affecting communities, all social ills that are affecting young people. I mean, we've got challenges such as substance abuse. They lead to GBVF. We've got challenges like human trafficking, you know, teenage pregnancy. All of that, all of those social ills are somehow related to what becomes GBVF at the end of the day. It is important for us to work with government, to work with corporate South Africa, and to work with communities in order to eradicate these social ills.
Lucky, part of what we hear is we're told about, you know, the crime that happens, especially over weekends. And you talked about the crime statistics earlier. And, you know, you look at the murder rate, when most murders happen, it's over the weekend, oftentimes, again, related to drinking. And the message of gender-based violence is also a general one of violence that you're taking to areas like taverns. What are you finding has been the responses from the people who are there? And what are they saying about what they believe is leading to this violence?
Firstly, I would like to declare that, you know, all the liquor traders in the country are fully behind all the initiatives to ensure that we not just fight crime, but also deal decisively with the issue of gender-based violence, which was the main focus for our work today and the awareness campaign that we ran in Tembisa. We have seen the stats, and we take notice of the fact that a lot of the matters that take place, especially in the township environment, happen over the weekend, and it's in the wee hours of the morning. And we have since established that, you know, it's those liquor traders that are not licensed, that should not actually even be operating. These are shebeens that are running establishments over a 24-hour period, which is totally unacceptable. And we have reached out to the Minister of Police to say we want to work together to ensure that we eradicate, you know, these shebeens that they have no right to operate because they are actually operating illegally. But we're also saying, on the other hand, that we need to formalize the environment. We need to be able to give people that are deserving of liquor licenses so that we have an environment that is fully compliant with all the relevant regulations, because in a regulated environment, you hardly see a lot of these crimes that are reported and are linked to, you know, alcohol consumption or even liquor trading. So we are saying that we need to be able to look beyond just, you know, blaming alcohol, but look at the environment in which alcohol is sold. And we are saying that a lot of the ills that we see in society happens in environments that are not licensed to sell alcohol.
Tebogo, do you find that initiatives like the one today actually help men in speaking out? Because often, you know, we're told that there aren't enough safe spaces where men can actually talk about some of the issues and the challenges that they're facing in their own lives, and that could very well be some of the contributing factors to the levels of violence we're seeing.
Affirmative, because I'll be honest with you, such programs actually encourage a change in behavior, which is what we're trying to push as an agenda or as an organization. It is important for us to change the mentality. It is important to change the mentality of South Africans in totality. We are a violent nation, and that needs to change. And as soon as we reduce the violence, I think we can be able to also reduce the scourge of violence against women and children. You know, men in this country are quick to get into a fighting mode, whereas we could resolve our problems or our issues in different manners. So it's truly, truly important or imperative for us to have such programs, because we then get to spread our message or to educate or to advocate enough, even for the ears that are not listening, you know, which is very, very crucial and important for us. It then escalates to men wanting to speak out. But beyond men, it also assists us, because we then get a lot of women that get the power to then say, I can walk away from my perpetrator, I can walk away from my abuser at home, which also adds on or escalates the numbers that we've seen. And that's why we've been seeing the rise in terms of the cases that have been reported. It simply means the victims or the survivors that have been silent have now gone out to speak out or have now gone out to report their cases. They have a form of a voice where they can speak out. They've gained the strength. They are able to go and say, I have been violated. I have been in an abusive relationship, which is what we want at the end of the day, instead of survivors or victims dying silently in their own bedrooms.
Tebogo, Lerole, act now chairperson. Like Ntimane, he's the convener at the National Liquor Traders Association. Thank you both for your time tonight.